Hello, and welcome to the Curmudgeon in the Cell number 116. Beside me is my good buddy Jim Wampler, who's here tonight. We're going to, we're going to talk about non-contagious ways to greet each other in view of the fact that what everybody knew was going to happen has finally happened. GaryCon 12 has been canceled. We've all been waiting for this shoe to drop all week. I can say now that I had already determined that I was not going to attend. Now there's nothing to not attend, but I had decided I wasn't going to take the risk. I'm already in the 8% possibility range with my age, and then there's the immune system screwed up, and the diabetes and the heart disease. So
don't forget vaping.
Yeah, and then there's vaping, yes. And so I'd already decided I wasn't going to go, and my wife and I now have kind of isolated ourselves away from our grandkids and their parents, and our great-grands and their parents, and the guys that I game with on Wednesday night, and this guy here. And otherwise, I'm going to pretty much stay isolated for the next week or two. Just today, we had 4 confirmed cases right here in the county, about 8 miles up the road. So
I feel for you guys. It's a lot easier on a severe introvert and bachelor like me, because it's like, stay away from people and crowds. Oh no, don't throw me in the briar patch.
Yeah, well, I understand Luke having to drag this out as long as he did, simply because he had to get to a point where the state said you can't do it. Now he can get out of the contracts, because while they're not going to be broken, the LLC won't be broken by this. It is a severe hit. They're going to lose some money. There's going to be unsold. Well, most people will buy up the shirts and all, the swag and stuff, but there's still money left on the table that they're not going to make to put together for next year. The vendors are really taking it in the nose here on this, because many of them look at that con as a significant chunk of their spring or first half of the fiscal year, or big chunk of the year, whatever. They look at that stuff that was going to be premiered there is not going to be. It's a big hit for everybody. But I'm really getting sick and tired of seeing some of the whiny gamers going on and on about, we're not going to get our money back. We're not going to get all our money back.
Well, right. And the financial burden that it creates for the con is in the middle of the financial burden the entire country is going through. There'll be a recession out of this. So, just get it in perspective.
Yeah, it seems as though some of the things I'm seeing online, people think we gamers ought to be a protected species. Hey, we're all going to take it on the chin to one degree or another. Those of us that sell our products there don't get to sell them, don't get to expose people to them, don't get to build our brands, don't get to turn the merchandise, as well as the people that are disappointed. And I understand some people have, planned on this all year. This is their vacation. I understand. But in the greater scale of what's likely to happen in this country, I really think it's time for some gamers to suck it up a little bit and shoulder the burden. Nobody likes it, but quit being a whinging, whiny baby.
Or yeah. I mean, I have a psychology background, so to engage in some cognitive behavioral therapy, flip it around and to what can I do that's positive and constructive in response to this, maybe.
And you had a great idea.
I wish I could claim the idea. It was not my idea, although I'm a happy participant. Everyone that was going to GaryCon from Cincinnati, is decided already tonight, hours after the announcement, to go ahead and have our own mini GaryCon at Gateway Games and More here in Cincinnati. Everybody that was going, that was going to run games, is going to run them there. Everybody that was going to play games is going to play them there. You're invited, but you're
no. I've
in a
elected
risk category where you don't feel comfortable doing it.
I've elected out.
Me, I've got 5 foot of Awful Green Things Starship map printed out, and I'll show up with that and run that. And A, have fun. B, be safe. And C, remember what GaryCon is all really about, which is
remembering Gary, get together and having fun playing games,
celebrating Gary Gygax and a life well played. We're gonna do that, and you can follow our lead. I mean, I can't think of anything more awesome than on the weekend we all took vacation days for gathering in small groups across the world and having individual little mini GaryCons anyway.
And then every one of you that does it, go to the GaryCon website and tell us what you did. And it could be amazing, it could be awesome.
I mean, the level of magic that can still happen is DM Kojo's son Chase was going to DM his very first DCC game at this GaryCon. Now he's going to drive down to Cincinnati, join us, and still get to do that.
Got to do what you can.
That's kind of awesome.
And it's all about remembering Gary, but it's not about endangering our healths. As much as I love gaming and as much as gaming has been my life, it's not worth my life. And that was the decision I had to make. Throat oil. What else you got? Or should I start with this stuff?
Oh, yeah. It's
okay.
Your show, dude.
I got a few things we'll talk about. First question. How woke do we have to be? This is spurred by a Kickstarter or GoFundMe or something, where some young lady was going to make a whole new deck of cards, something to do with the queens. Why were the queens subordinate to the kings? That's just so mind-boggling on so many levels. And my first reaction was, well, fine. In all the games you play, make queens higher than kings. There you go. You got them. Anyway, how woke do we have to be? What we know as the good old bicycle back U.S. playing card has evolved over the last 1,000 years from pasteboards to what we have today, and morphed into Uno decks and everything else. Hey, just make up your own rules. Okay.
May I retort?
Yes, you may.
Because what I love is we're both curmudgeons, but we curmudgeon on slightly different frequencies.
Oh yeah.
The pushback to that is how woke do we have to be? Woke enough to know when, it's okay, because they're not taking anything away from me by doing that. If I'm a poker fanatic or a bicycle card fanatic.
Well, I don't claim to be either of those. I just think it's foolish.
Well, we talked about it a little bit on air, and just my gut reaction is, for 55 some odd years, every little boy in the English-speaking world had a Doctor Who of their own that they could dress up and play as and emulate and look up to. And last 2 years, now little girls everywhere have their own Doctor Who. And I think that's kind of awesome, because they're already showing up at conventions in the costume, and they didn't take the old doctors away.
Well,
so just woke enough.
It's kind of a straw man, but we'll let it go there. Okay, I was bouncing around the ideas of charging money and running games and that, and I got a number of different responses on that. One of them, for instance, I'd really like to see your adventures. Lulu is a good printing source. Well, we'll disagree on that one. And the problem with that is I'm too lazy right now to do the polishing and the buffing, because I wrote some of these 8-10 years ago, and I'm a much better, more polished adventure writer since. Had better practice.
Plus, it's not that push button. I mean, there's layout. And
I don't.
The files organized.
And then I got to get art together and pay artists, and I'm like everybody else. I got no money to pay artists, so I don't think that'll work.
there's a GaryCon pushback I can get on board with. Is the guys whining about, you special guests get a free ride, so it doesn't affect you. Yeah, two broke game designers sitting right here, and it cost us money, even with
without going, it's
a free
cost us
badge and
money.
a free room.
Yeah, it's already cost us. So we're already out too.
I got to take time off work. I don't get that money back.
Okay, this one I have a real simple answer to. The question is, what's the origin of the Death Knight? It's a Monster Manual favorite of mine.
Ooh.
I don't know who, except I have a sneaky suspicion. If I had to guess, I would have said it was Brian Bloom, because the Death Knight's kind of an anti-paladin, and Brian for a while was fooling around in that area. So if I had to guess, I'd say Brian, and probably Gary might have had a finger or two in it too. But it really strikes me, because I went and looked at this rascal after the question came in again, because God knows I don't remember them all. I would say it was probably the anti-paladin, the stealer of souls. I know that there are big fans of Moorcock and swords that drank your souls around the upstairs of that building. Speaking of that building, now it can be told. The old 723, 723 Williams, 726. Anyway, the old gray house on the corner across from the Clark Station and the Pizza Hut. It was bought by an LLC, and it's now the D&D Museum. There was going to be this incredible celebrity game to inaugurate the thing. Stefan Picorni was bringing all his terrain and everything. And he had all the Gygaxes playing in the game, and he had the two of us coming in late in the game to kill him.
The invitation I got, thanks to you, was, would you like to show up as a monster and play a monster and kill some Gygaxes? And I'm like, I owe Luke for a couple of Circus Maximuses from past GaryCons. I'll gladly do that.
So, but now we don't get to do that. But then again, now we don't have to leave at 7:30 in the morning to get there in time. So, and there's always a trade-off.
Next year.
Yep, next year. Okay. Why can't magazines be sold in short runs for game cons only, or sign up subscribers at cons? By the way, a little spark can start a wildfire. Yeah, if you can say it. You won't find anybody that's a greater advocate for magazines than me. It goes without saying.
Or more experienced in the financial structures that support one.
Well, there's that too. It's just not feasible. Doesn't matter if you're only making 40 copies to sell at a con. It takes the same amount of work to prepare it, to put it together, to write it, to lay it out, to spec the art. And what you would be charged for the hard copies to take, soft bounds to take with you, do you want to buy a 40-page $10 magazine? The economy of scale just isn't there anymore. And I have another one coming up here that deals with the same issue of magazines. I would never be a doomsayer for magazines if I didn't believe it was true. It just is not there. There's not the advertising base to support them. Subscribers cannot be counted on beyond the first year. I've been there 4 times now. I can tell you. You'll get an initial buzz for subscribers, and then if you don't keep them hooked every issue, that's going to melt away over the second 12 months. You cannot count on newsstand sales because there aren't any newsstands to speak of. The only shot you got for a place on a shelf is at a game store. And God knows there's few enough of those nowadays.
Well, yeah, and it's obvious because the big marquee magazines are in trouble. You know, so when Time Magazine is struggling or, something, But the flip side of this is the technology that helped kill magazines as a market has caused resurgence in fanzines. So we all miss, cracking open a Dragon magazine, looking at all the articles, but that's no longer possible, in part because of the fragmentation of the gaming market. Fanzines are the answer because they specialize, short print runs, everything you're asking for.
Well, not only that, fanzines can be produced by the people who have a love for it, and they can spend all the time and the effort, and not me, because it. Well, I've got another question here. Well, I'll jump to it now. Let's see, where is it? Okay, they wanted to do an editions. It had to do with doing an editions magazine. Okay, here. Something for every edition of D&D specifically might work. We would keep it to OD&D first, second, 3.5, fifth, no fourth. Well, okay. There are edition-specific groups on Facebook with enough user-generated content. We'd call it Editions Magazine.
That guy knows how to get on air with a question. His email started with "Hail Lord Cass."
Well,
he knows how to get on air.
No, that won't do you any good. Kissing Fanny doesn't work. I talked about this before. Editions magazine. All right, let's say we've got an 80-page magazine. Now we're already pipe dreaming here, but we'll say we have an 80-page magazine, and you want to divide it up into 1, 2, 3, 4
editions at least.
Yeah, and 5. You've got 5 different divisions here. O, first, second, 3, 5, 5. Okay. So in a real world, we'll give them each 20 pages. And we'll sell enough advertising in those. We have to sell at least 25% of those 20 pages. We have to sell at least 5 of them. I mean, that's the way the math works. So now we have 15 pages for each of 5 editions. 15 pages at best is 4 articles.
That's generous.
Well, that's, one of them's going to be pretty short, and one of them's not going to have a hell of a lot of art. So now you have a possibility of 4 articles, and that's generous, for somebody to pick up and look at on that book, that shelf, that place in the store, and thumb through, and they only carry about second, and so they got 4 articles to look at second, and they just kind of go, and they put it back, because that's the way it works. If you don't see something you want to read about, you don't buy it. And it's not enough to be able to, it's like you're trying to fish for 5 different species of fish at the same time. And believe me, anybody that's fished knows how hard that is. You can concentrate on 2, or if you're a really good fisherman, 3, depending upon where you're at and what fish you're looking. But 5? It's not feasible. It simply isn't. You have to have an absolute surefire knockout article in every one of those 5 divisions to have a hope of selling that magazine to the person that only cares about that division, that edition.
And find guys to write it for maybe 3 cents a word.
Yeah. Try to find quality writers, because I couldn't even afford to pay me what I would normally get. I can't afford to pay me to do it. So, how's that going to happen? Sorry, I just don't think magazines as we knew them are no longer viable. Like I last week before, Military Heritage, one of my favorite military history magazines. Wow, bigger. Wow, more pages, more articles, bigger maps. Oh, not 6 times a year, now 4. Okay, I'm glad they're still plugging along at 4. You wouldn't want them to go belly up, but
I love remembering that every edition was somebody's first edition. Fourth edition was my nephew's first edition because he was in high school. And poor fourth edition, even he doesn't like it. As soon as 5e came out, it's like, that's what we're running.
yeah, and there's people that play everything. You know, I mean, look how many people showed up in Massachusetts to play Pathfinder.
Easy now.
Easy. We're not going back there. But I wasn't the only one. If you watched last week, I wasn't the only one that. In fact, our buddy, had a little run-in with him too. Okay, what's my specific house rule for encounter distances outdoors? And you just use common sense and the environment around the party for dungeon encounter distance. Yeah, common sense. If
at the edge of the map, right? That's where they show up.
Well, but common sense says if there's a big flying something circling over a corpse or something, whatever, you're going to see it a long way away. You might not be able to identify it other than, ooh, big flying thing, but you're going to see it a long way away. If you're creeping through the jungle, down game trails, yeah, that panther is going to leap out on your head long before you see him. Common sense is the best way. Indoors or out, common sense. If you're out in the middle of the flat plains, of course you're going to see that rhinoceros coming after you. Just hope to hell that never happens to you.
At Tim's table, though, watch out, because there is a stereotypical Tim Cass created monster, and here's how it works. It hides like the panther, but it has a ranged attack like a frog tongue or something that will come out and hit you and then go back. So caution at Tim's table is advised.
Yeah. Speaking of which, in honor of, or in recognition of the fact that GaryCon has been canceled, I'm willing to entertain ideas on how I can run a couple of blame games this weekend online. It would have to involve something with a camera because I got to be able to see what you write down on your cards, and I got to be able to show you what your character sheet looks like. But it could be done. And I don't know if I'm open to suggestions on what platform might work best, whether it's Skype or Discord. I've only ever done audio on. If there's another one, because I'm kind of interested in the idea of whether or not I could run this online anyway. So it's a good weekend to experiment once or twice with and see if it's feasible. So I'm open to suggestions on a platform. But when it comes to encounter distance, I always try to apply common sense. All right. Now, if it's some creature that has an innate ability to create a mist or make itself nearly invisible or whatever, okay, common sense says you are going to see it. It's going to see you before. But I never felt I needed a chart or a table to tell me how far away something had to be. If it's something that has keen eyesight, well, then it's going to see you farther away. Like that rhino. They can't see doodly squat a long way away, but they'll smell you. Okay, and there again, are you upwind? Are you downwind? Common sense, but without getting too complex.
Common sense could be your friend. The evil necromancer chucks an invisibility potion right in front of you and disappears from combat. You grab a handful of dirt and throw it in his direction.
Yep.
You got a target.
Yep, it's common sense. And not enough people apply everyday common sense. I don't know if it's because not enough people grew up playing in the woods when they were kids or what, but common sense will oftentimes point the way out, no matter how crazy the game's going. Do any of these conventions have any sound minimizing devices? Okay, this is in reference to last week when we talked about all the noise. You can get an app on your phone to check it out. It hurts concentration. Well, The only one, to be honest, that I've ever seen, well, two places I've seen that have draperies hanging from the ceiling. One was a couple of years ago here in CincyCon at the
Really?
Yeah, they had big things hanging at several places in the large room that did help baffle the sound. I also saw at the Sharon, I just thought of a third place, at the Sharonville Convention Center when I went to the other con that I can't remember its name right now. They had baffles, and Gen Con in the dealer area uses great hanging baffles that show the aisle numbers, but they also do the same thing of deadening the sound.
Get out.
At several places around there, they have
I didn't know that.
They have multi-sided hangings. You would think that they would be speaker cones, but they're not. But they're also there to help deaden and baffle the sound. Other than that, unless you're at a really huge place like, the Indiana Convention Center, not a lot of people have the stuff to hang. I believe I may have been in a convention center in Kansas City a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, that also might have had some baffles hanging from the ceiling in a large room so that the noise was dampened somewhat.
He's talking about an app on the phone. Is that some kind of white noise generating?
Well, no,
app?
Apparently you can ask an app.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can get an app on my phone to check it out.
Sorry, you know me. I took it straight to
That's okay.
science fiction levels.
Look at this. We have a gambler from Triskelion.
100 Quatlus. Is that the whole comment?
That was the whole comment.
Quatlus?
Yeah, it must have been in response to something I said. Yeah, I had to be honest. I knew the word. I knew the word, but I had to look it up. I just could not place the classic.
100 Quatlus on common sense.
Now, this one is a reference to something you said earlier. And he says he loves that I have a death grip on that oil burner in all my vids. Well, no.
Oh.
This is not the oil burner. This is the juice vape, the nicotine. This is the oil burner. Let's not get them confused now.
For the record, strictly nicotine.
Well, yeah. But yeah, you should have known me when I smoked a pipe. I had quite a collection. I started collecting them, in fact, when I was working at TSR. And so I always had a pipe in hand. I would gesture with it, lit or unlit, didn't matter. One of the
you were on the pipe when I met you when I was a kid, sitting in the Ralph Hartha building doing Adventure Gaming Magazine. You and that pipe.
Yeah,
I was in Darlene's drawing of you for the little forwards in the magazine.
Yep.
That was a Sherlock Holmes pipe.
I smoked a briar type pipe for over 25 years. So I just got used to having something in my hand that I could, wave around.
I love thinking about that.
Otherwise, I'd look like Lewis Black with his spastic finger.
I love remembering that because I was 19 and you were 31, and I thought you were incredibly old.
Yeah, well.
Now what's the difference?
None. All right, now this is an odd open-ended question, and I could make up a bunch of shit and get away with it. Can you include any memorable plot lines or story twists from the old days of D&D? Well, by the old days, my reference to the old days would be the 15 months that I ran the campaign down in Carbondale in concert with, Gary. Every couple of weeks we put our heads together, or some of the old playtest version sessions that I played in up there.
I'm trying to do the math. So this is 1974. So I'm 13 and you're 25.
Yeah, I'm 25. Yeah, I know. Now I'm 71.
We're old.
Yes, and and I was told by my wife that I wasn't going to the con either because We have a big to-do planned, hopefully in August in Alabama, where we got a giant house on the beach, and the whole family's going to get together. And if I'm not there for our 50th anniversary, she's going to haunt me for the rest of eternity. So I got to make sure I'm still here for that. Where was I in that?
Make sure you're still here for that by not pissing off Cheryl.
Well, that's a daily. That's a daily. That's a daily. I don't know. It was fun. It was fun in the old days when you infected somebody with lycanthropy and they didn't know it yet. You could really screw around with their heads.
You did that to us in the campaign you ran a few years ago.
Yes, I did. Yes. Because they just take a wound and they get healed up and everything. That's fine. But the whole thing about lycanthropy is you don't know. And then under moments of stress, it starts to manifest itself. And
Werewolf in London, your hand goes.
some of the best special effects. That was always fun because you make them do silly things and have them stop and sniff the walls, and they no, go ahead, go on. And you just started bringing out little things, and then when the shit hit the fan, then they go berserk. We had a guy in Carbondale that survived being bitten and actually mastered it. And under the old rules, that was damn tough.
Tell me it was the guy you talk about all the time whose character was constantly otherwise dying.
No, that's Neil.
Okay.
No, that's or Deathless Bob. No.
Deathless Bob.
No, Weirbear actually is what we called him because he became a bear, and one day they got in a jam, and according to the dice, he wigged out and he killed and so there he was. And so Gary and I conversed on how do you learn to control this, and so we came up with a methodology of learning how, and he always managed to do it. And after a while, he could go bear on command. So he only ever wore leather, never wore metal, and he just slipped off his leather and turned bear and just weighed in. And
so eventually, he was smarter than the average werebear.
Yes, he was. And no, we didn't call him Yogi because even in real life, he was a big dude. I don't know. They used to. When we were playtesting the village of Hamlet, I've told this story before, but I don't know how long ago. I couldn't always make it. I lived in Delavan, 11 miles away, and we had a baby girl. And Mandy was 2 when I moved up there. And so I couldn't always, my wife worked second shift, I couldn't always come over and play. And in the playtest, and I was I was the character that became Giroux of the Ash Staff, except I was just the unnamed druid of the Grove at the time, and I was called Tim the Lusty Druid, and they made up. Well, you almost call him cadence calls about my character and what he was likely to do if left alone into his own devices in the woods.
Cadence calls or body limericks?
Somewhere between, but it seems as though every time I missed an adventure, there were a couple of more species in the woods that I'd taken a shine to. Yeah, I know.
I don't need to.
Yeah.
TMI.
Well, that was Terry and Rob and Ernie, and
Tom.
No, Tom wasn't there yet. Not yet. Tom Wom came after. No, I was there a while, about a year, I think, before. That's not a dry cough.
Vape cough.
Because no, that's not a dry Corona cough. It's because I smoke weed. That's the best meme I saw online all week. Guy in Denver holding up a sign. I don't have a dry Corona cough. I just smoked weed. Best sign, I thought. Anyway, Gary was big on doing wicked shit to you. He'd let you believe something was something for the longest time, and then all of a sudden, when really hurt, you'd find out that, hey, he didn't.
I never got to play, but he always sounded like my favorite kind of bastard DM, because you always tell the story when Gary was running you guys through Metamorphosis Alpha playtest, and just his verbal description of freaking stairs had you buffaloed. Like,
oh yeah, and then he'd let us make an assumption, and then something would go horribly wrong, and no, I didn't say, you assumed. And so you learn not to assume anything in Gary's dungeons, anything at all, because you were invariably going to be wrong. And even if you assumed right, he'd change it on the spur of the moment.
Wait, that's not right.
Oh, of course it was. That was very old school. When we were playing amongst ourselves up there, it was anything went. Anything was good.
Well, it makes sense though, because if your players are like Ernie and Rob and those guys, they're power gaming like crazy. Kids, you think you invented power gaming? No.
No. We figured out what it was, and then we said, "Oh no, we got to stop."
I've read books. Those guys would show up for a dungeon with their retinue and army. We're going in this place and clean it out.
Well, see how we used to hire platoons of level 0s and level 1s, and promise them, we knew there was a bunch of loot in there, and we promised them a healthy, portion of it each.
But you have to live to collect.
Well, yeah, 40% of them would die, so we only paid off 60% of them. But Gary encouraged that. He'd have somebody you hired turn around and stab you in the back, or, well, not literally stab you, but steal something. He was good on that, having NPCs steal stuff from the party. You just never, and he was also good at not quite describing it correctly. Oh, didn't I say that thing that just dropped off the ceiling was green? And so occasionally, you thought you'd stepped in some goo, only to find out it was gray ooze, because he'd been a little sketchy in his description. That was always fun. I made a rule never be the first one in the room in Gary's dungeons. I was never first in. Any other stories? I can't think of any, really. The best old stories have probably been superseded by 40 better ones.
Did you ever have Gary pull doppelgangers on you?
Oh yeah. In fact, one time we got attacked by 4 of Ernie's character, and they were all doppelgangers.
Wait. So Ernie has a PC, and 4 copies of that PC show up.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
and so we all thought they were Ernie, and they started wailing on us, and so we just.
You thought all 4 were Ernie?
Yeah. Well, they were. They were
if 4 of the same guy show up, there's your sign.
Well, no, because no. Back then that was not.
Oh, right. Could have
been cloned. There was a whole. No, again, you didn't assume anything in Gary's dungeons. You never assumed. And so, for Ernie's showed up one time. I don't remember. It was one of his characters that we hadn't seen in a long time. And all of a sudden, 4 of them show up. So we knew something was up, but we thought one of them was real. And so we were reluctant to just start slaying them outright for fear we'd kill Ernie. And after his 4 doppelgangers beat us up pretty good, we decided it wasn't Ernie, and we killed him. But
where was Ernie the player in all of this?
Well, Ernie was there too, but he didn't know. He wasn't controlling those guys.
Okay.
Gary would take your character and say, "Here, and if you were under his control, mind control or whatever, he would just take your character and make you do things. If you didn't make your saving throw, make you do things."
We are what we are. I'm old school enough where I've had that happen at a con. Okay, give me your sheet.
Well, I was never one to tear him up when I killed you. I smiled.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, like, okay, I've got control of your character now. Give me your sheet.
Oh yeah. Oh sure. Yeah. You're not you anymore. Just sit there.
Plus, I just me personally, I adore the secret information only one player knows. Screw DM notes. I want to take you outside in the hall and have a conversation. Then have you come back and Chinese whisper repeat what you think you know.
Oh, okay.
I love that.
Yeah, I can see why. It's like it's like letting a whole bag of red herrings loose in the pool.
Well, no, I mean like legit knowledge, but you have to repeat it back. I don't do it.
Well, yeah, and if they don't get it exactly right,
or they make assumptions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that goes back to, hey, I let the players make all the mistakes they choose to make. I never try to lead them into a mistake. I'm honest enough to say that when they make a wrong assumption, if they don't try to verify their assumption, I just let them walk right over the precipice.
Plus, it's okay as long as it's even-handed. When they make a wrong assumption but choose to do something that surprises you and is great for them, you stand behind the screen and go, well done.
Yeah, yep. That's only fair. I mean, a man would be a total ass to sit down and say that he could write an adventure and think out every possible thing that could happen and therefore have a pre-prepared response.
No one can do that. And,
No.
And playtesting won't plug all those holes either.
Well, it goes back to the old axiom about errata sheets. Why did we always have to print errata sheets? No rules can be ingenious. No rules are foolproof because fools are too ingenious. There's just no way you can foresee everything that might happen and come up with a rule for it. That's why I always say it's rulings, not rules. There's going to be stuff that comes up. Just make a ruling and go with it. And if you didn't like it, well, next time you can change it. But you better have a good reason, because one of the things is your world's supposed to be somewhat consistent, or it just isn't fair at all. Anything for you?
Well, I mean, and you know, the wonderful thing about this whole hobby is it caters to every individual and every group. I mean, because it's no skin off my nose if you play 5e, Adventure Classics, or Pathfinder, or My Little Magic Pony. If you and your group are having fun doing it, that's how you know that the GM and the players have got equitable back and forth.
Yeah.
If they keep showing up and you're the GM and you're still having fun.
As I preach time and time again, if they show up every time to play, you're doing it right. If they quit showing up, time to look at what you're doing. If they don't, if they don't have real reasons, like some of the guys that I play with every other Wednesday, occasionally one of them have a big day the next day and can't make it because he's got to, bone up for whatever, going to court or something. So, if they're showing up on a regular basis, you're doing it right. It doesn't hurt to go, hey, guys, what can I do better? You might be surprised. Or they might just be lick spittles and kiss up to you and tell you you're wonderful.
Yeah, and
I had to get that in. Sorry.
Well, okay, I think Curmudgeon along with you. I mean, 5 editions and nobody's found the magic rules they can write that fix bad DMs and broken players. But that would,
Well, it's like that, and it's the same thing. Remember the troll that got on?
I mean, we were all bad DMs and broken players when we started. We did all kinds of insane.
Oh, crap. I'm sure I was awful, but I was lucky. I had Gary whispering in my ear. I was very lucky in that regard.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, that's all right. I forgot what I was going to go for there. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, it was always fun to have you here, and I'm glad we were here to talk about GaryCon and what's going on. And well, his idea is a great one. Plan on doing something that weekend somewhere, and when you do, whether you get together with 2 other people, 1 other person, and play a game and think about, Gary's legacy.
We can still celebrate Gary's life in little 2s and 3s and pockets of 10 and 12s.
That's right. And when you do, go post it on the GaryCon website and tell them all, I don't care if it's just you and a buddy and you hoisted a beer to Gary. That's cool.
We might go nuts and make our own badges. Something that doesn't infringe on GaryCon's IP. Like it'll be Gary's Mini-Con. We're not in Cincinnati.
Yeah, we may. Yeah.
But what we are going to do is earn our nickname Lake Geneva South because we're doing it. We're having our own little GaryCon.
And we also have our own little cabal of game designers here in Cincinnati. Oh, was I not supposed to talk about that?
Oh no.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
It's right. It's right there in the name. It's a cabal.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
It's a secret.
All right. Can't talk about that. All right. Well, we've wandered on for 45 minutes. So I think at this point we'll say, go out. I'll be back on next week. And the week after, go out and do what you want to do that weekend. And
stay safe and stay rational.
Yes. And be very, very circumspect over these next several weeks about where you go and who you mingle with and what you do, because this is something none of us alive. There's no one alive today that lived through the Spanish influenza outbreak in 1918 and 1919. That was just the flu. And it killed 50 million people out of a whole lot fewer than there are today. So it was a rather significant portion of the world's population. So be smart, and let's all meet next year at GaryCon, and we'll talk about this year and how we all survived the coronavirus. And with that, I'll say Dodada Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree.
High as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.